October 1st, 331 BC, near Gaugamela, Mesopotamia. Picture this, you're standing in the middle of an open plain, no shelter, no way out. Across the dust, 250 Zhuazuran Persian soldiers deploy for battle, the largest army the ancient world had ever assembled. For the Persians, the outcome was already written. This wasn't an army gathered to fight, it was built to deliver the killing blow. At its center stands Darius III, the man no army in Asia dared to challenge, the kind of power that doesn't expect resistance, only obedience. Facing him, 47,000 Macedonians, led by a 25-year-old king who has never lost a battle and who has never been closer to death. Alexander the Great. The Persians outnumber him 5-1. They have cavalry on both flanks, war chariots at the front, battle elephants. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should be over before it starts. Now watch what happens. By sunset, the Persian Empire is going to crumble, and the King of Kings is going to abandon his men and flee with his life. Alexander will become King of Asia. How did an army that should have been wiped off the map bring down an empire before sundown? By the end of this video, you'll understand how the impossible happened and why it changed history forever. If this kind of history grabs you, consider subscribing. To understand why Gaugamela mattered, we first need to understand how Alexander waged his wars. To grasp the importance of Gaugamela, there's something you need to know first. Alexander fought every war as if there would be no second chance. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia with just 35 Zhuazuran men, not to negotiate, not to test the waters, but to punish Persia for invading Greece and prove that Macedonia owned the battlefield. At the Granicus River, he didn't hesitate for a second. He launched a cavalry charge straight into Persian forces, nearly dying when an axe split his helmet. He survived, and Persia shattered. A year later, Issus. This time, Darius himself came to stop him. The battlefield was narrow, Persian numbers were useless. Alexander spotted Darius, charged straight at him, and the King of Kings fled. He left behind his family, his treasury, his army. Alexander didn't just win battles, he destroyed authority. After Issus, the world began to tilt. Tyre resisted. Alexander wiped it out after 7 brutal months. Egypt put up no resistance. They crowned him pharaoh. Every victory followed the same pattern, decisive, personal, final. But one man kept watching. Darius was still alive, still ruling the heart of the empire, and this time he was learning. By 331 BC, there was nowhere left to run. This time, Darius chose the battlefield, wide, flat, endless, a place where cavalry could surround, where numbers could finally count. Gaugamela. Darius believed Alexander's luck had run out, that one more reckless charge wouldn't save him. Alexander believed something else, that wars were decided by finding the king and breaking him. But this time, doing that meant risking everything. And at Gaugamela, he was ready to do exactly that. September 30th, the night before the battle, Darius believed everything was finally in his favor. His plan was straightforward. The chariots would tear the Macedonian line apart, the cavalry would crush the flanks, and when Alexander was left exposed, the empire would finish him. In the Macedonian camp, some officers pushed for a night attack. Strike first, avoid the trap. Alexander refused. I will not steal victory like a thief. He wanted Darius to see him, to face him, to lose in broad daylight. That night, Alexander walked the field alone. He studied the ground Darius trusted, and he saw exactly where the empire would break. October 1st, dawn. Look across the Persian line. This isn't an army, it's an empire daring anyone to stand in its way. 250 Zhuazuran men, drawn from every corner of the known world. Cavalry from Bactria and Scythia, riding horses since childhood. Infantry from Babylon, Media, Syria, India. Different languages, different cultures, all forced under a single command. At the front waited 200 scythed chariots, blades fixed to their wheels, designed to shred infantry apart. Behind them rose war elephants from India, living weapons meant to shatter formations before the battle had even begun. At the center sat Darius III, King of Kings, watching the plain he himself had chosen. On the Persian left stood Bessus, commanding the elite Bactrian and Scythian cavalry, fast, aggressive, and positioned to destroy any threat to the flank. On the right waited Mazaeus, leading cavalry from Syria and Mesopotamia, holding down the other wing. This is what imperial power looks like, an army built to end wars in a single day. Now look at the other side. No reserves, no margin for error. At the center stands the phalanx, 31 Ziwa heavy infantry, shoulder to shoulder gripping 18-foot sarissas, forming a moving wall of bronze. Behind them, 9 Ziwazun light troops, peltasts, archers, and elite shock infantry, fast, flexible, trained to screen the line, destroy chariots, and strike where the phalanx can't turn. And on the wings, 7 Zul cavalry. On the right, Alexander himself, leading the bulk of the cavalry, the companions at its core, his personal strike force, positioned for the decisive blow. On the left, Parmenion, commanding the entire defensive flank, the remaining Thessalian and allied Greek cavalry, and the left section of the phalanx, tasked with holding the line, while Alexander prepared to tear the battlefield apart. Alexander rode along the formation. He stopped in front of his army and said, "Men of Macedonia, look at them. They fight for gold. They fight because they're ordered to. You fight because this ground belongs to you. Behind us is Greece, and there is no road home that doesn't pass through this field. Ahead of us stands a king who believes numbers decide fate. Today, show him what discipline decides. Hold the line. Watch me. Where I ride, follow. If I fall, don't stop. Better to die here than to live knowing we let fear decide for us." For a heartbeat. Silence. Then the line erupted. Shields clashed, spears struck bronze. It wasn't celebration, it was commitment. A roar swept across the Macedonian army. The Persian army was so massive its wings stretched far beyond the Macedonian line. Encirclement wasn't a possibility, it was the plan, which left Alexander with only one option: move first. And so he did. Instead of advancing head-on, Alexander ordered his entire line to drift slowly to the right, pulling away from the leveled killing ground Darius had prepared. It looked like a mistake, the kind that gets an army surrounded and wiped out. But Bessus, commanding the Persian left, understood the danger immediately. Alexander wasn't attacking the center, he was trying to slip past it. To prevent that, Bessus stretched his cavalry farther and farther out, matching Alexander's movement step for step. Thousands of Bactrian and Scythian horsemen pulled the Persian line wider, dragging units away from the one place they couldn't afford to weaken: the king. The center began to thin. Still drifting right, Alexander forced Bessus into a decision. Unwilling to fight on broken ground, Bessus made his choice. He attacked. Persian cavalry surged forward, charging into the Macedonian right. The bait was taken. The Persian left was now fully committed. Seeing this, Darius believed the moment had come. 200 scythed chariots launched forward, and with them the war elephants began to charge, their weight shaking the earth. The ground thundered, but the phalanx didn't panic. It opened lanes. Chariots roared through empty corridors, while projectiles cut down the drivers, and the machines tore past without finding a target. The elephants followed, and met the same fate. Harassed by skirmishers, blinded by spears, they staggered sideways into the gaps, where phalanx ranks closed in and finished them cleanly. Darius's gamble collapsed in seconds. Meanwhile, on the opposite flank, Mazaeus hurled his cavalry at Parmenion, who fought desperately to hold the line. Watching the chaos unfold, Darius ordered a massive infantry charge. Tens of thousands pushing forward at once, a rolling wall of shields and spears driving straight into the center. The Persian army was fully committed, every reserve, every option, and that decision would cost Darius everything. With Bessus locked in combat and infantry pulled from the center, a weakness appeared. A thin, frayed section of the Persian left center, where order had broken, where the king now stood exposed. Alexander saw it instantly. Gathering a wedge of companion cavalry, he turned left and charged, not at the army, at the king. The wedge smashed through the Persian center. Suddenly the fighting was no longer distant. It was right in front of Darius. Alexander pushed closer, cutting through guards, gaining ground step by step. Darius, growing more uneasy by the second, braced to defend himself. Then he broke. For the second time, the King of Kings turned his chariot and fled. And the moment Darius ran, the Persian center began to collapse. Orders stopped, units pulled away. What had been an empire became a crowd. Bessus retreated. The rest dissolved. Alexander saw the opening and gave chase. Then the message arrived. Parmenion was in trouble. On the left flank, Mazaeus, unaware that Darius had fled, was on the verge of breaking the Macedonian line. Alexander made a decision few conquerors would have made. He turned back, he reinforced Parmenion, stabilized the flank, and only then did the battle truly end. Darius escaped, but his empire did not. Gaugamela was over. The Persian Empire had lost its center of gravity. Before this day, Persia was still a functioning superpower. Its satraps commanded armies, its cities controlled wealth, manpower and supply routes. And Darius, however flawed, was still king. After Gaugamela, all of that came apart. Babylon opened its gates, Susa surrendered its treasury, and Persepolis was burned to ashes. Alexander didn't conquer Persia city by city. He shattered its command structure in a single afternoon. But the war wasn't over. Darius was still alive. And as long as the king lived, resistance could still take shape. So Alexander pushed east, not chasing territory but legitimacy. That pursuit led him into the mountains, into narrow passes. In 330 BC, a Persian force made its last stand at a place designed to achieve what Gaugamela could not: stop Alexander completely. This was the Battle of the Persian Gates, where the empire's last hope rested on an ambush, and where Alexander came closer to defeat than at any other point in his campaign. Watch the Battle of the Persian Gates now.